Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar. We have a very special guest with us today, Mendel Sheperd. Welcome, Mendel, to the Jewish View.
Thank you.
Well, if you can see, maybe it's a little, we need a close-up of his uniform. I mean, on one hand, you could see he has a yarmulke and a beard, so he's a Hasidic person. On the other hand, his uniform is showing you that he's in Delmar, Bethlehem, EMT. He's a medical technician. And Mendel, tell us a little about that, how that's very interesting, how on one hand you're a religious Orthodox Hasidic Jew, and on the other hand, I don't know if there is another hand, see if they're complementary, of being an EMT. How did you get into it, maybe we could say, and how does that maybe affect your Judaism?
Yeah, so I started, my interest in EMT started about 5 years ago. I was living in Miami, and I heard that they have Hatzalah over there.
What is it, Hatzalah? Yeah, please explain.
Hatzalah is a Jewish volunteer ambulance service. So they have a normal ambulance most ambulance services, they'll have stations or they'll have ambulances where they respond to calls.
But this is mainly in New York City.
Hatzalah they respond from their home or from their job, middle of the day they get a call, they'll respond if they're available.
But there's nothing around here, I'm just saying.
Not here,
New
so
York City.
in Miami.
They do have in Miami?
They do have in Miami, and I was interested in EMS. So I contacted them, I asked them, is there anything I can do? I wasn't trained or anything, is there anything I can help out, maybe dispatch or whatever? So they called me and they said, it's interesting that you called because we're starting an EMT class. So I said, sure, I'll join. I don't know what I need to do to join, but they told me what I need to do, and I figured it out, and I joined with 6 or 7 other Jewish
What is the course involved with? I mean, it's somebody has a heart attack, I mean, that kind of idea that resuscitates somebody, someone's bleeding, I mean.
Yeah, so there's 2 main things. There's medical, someone having a heart attack, a stroke, someone's having even like a headache, sometimes people will call, or any other, and if someone's not feeling good, they'll go to the hospital, or if they don't feel well enough to go themselves, they'll call us, and we'll come over and we'll evaluate, we'll take their vital signs, their blood pressure, their pulse, sometimes their blood sugar if they're diabetic, or even if they're not, and we'll determine if they should go to the hospital or not. So that's medical, and then there's also trauma if someone gets hurt,
Car accidents?
Car accidents, sure, yeah, plenty of those. Someone falls off their bike, someone hurts themselves, gets a cut or a scrape or anything, they'll call us, we'll come over, we'll check them out, bandage them up, and if they need, we'll send them to the hospital.
But you don't do that, the Hatzalas, we're talking, it will not take someone to the hospital, or they?
Depends where. In New York City, they have their own ambulances, Hatzalah. In Miami, they actually don't, so they'll respond from their home. It could be even like a neighbor. They'll come over even on Shabbos or in the middle of the prayers and on Shabbos, and they'll go respond to the call.
Yeah, 2 things I wanted. It's interesting because right now that my wife, who deals with a lot of seniors here in Bethlehem, and there's one person, and I'm sure it's not just an exceptional case, this very old and decrepit, has been in the hospital, but trying to learn to live by himself. But every time he feels something, like you were saying before, it took my mind off, oh, I have a headache, or, who knows, maybe this is a heart attack. I mean, then they bring him to the hospital and they say, oh, just go home, Yeah. It's really not anything. So I guess you get a lot of false alarms like that.
We do get plenty of those calls. We get people calling, and some of those people we actually know that they call like once a week, but then we know,
really?
Okay, that address, okay, we already know them, we're going to make sure they're okay, but chances are they just, they want someone to make sure they're okay, and sometimes they just want to go to the hospital to,
evaluate
yeah,
what's happening.
But for the most part, some of those people are just, we call them frequent flyers, they come with us a lot.
But people like, sometimes they like attention also.
Yeah, exactly. You
My
know,
sister, who is a doctor in Pittsburgh in any case, and she's an oncologist, which means a cancer doctor, and I have cancer, and my sister evaluates it, you don't have no cancer, there's none, I mean, obviously there's other sicknesses that
Yeah.
you could be hurt by, a stomach ache or something like that. So, again, some people are hypochondriacs. I know she was complaining to us, I don't have time for this, I'm trying to, deal with real people with real diseases. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is very important. I mean, I don't know if our viewers really understand that, but on Shabbos, for example, which is Saturday, Friday night and Saturday, an Orthodox Jew doesn't drive his car anywhere to anything. And here, I want you just, once you did say that Hatzalah will come out on Saturday. What if there's a call on Saturday? Well, with also, Orthodox Jews do not answer the phone normally, but that's why I want you to explain that to people. Here you're, an EMT, or the service, not only you, but obviously the whole EMT. You can't say, well, you're sick Saturday morning, well, you're just going to have to wait 12 hours after your heart attack, until we finally get Shabbos is over Saturday night, and then we'll deal with it. So tell us about medical emergencies on Shabbos.
Yeah, so the rabbis, the rabbanim, the rabbis determine that, it says in the Torah that if there's an a human life pushes away Shabbos. So if someone's in danger, if you need to cook something on Shabbos, normally you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. If you need to cook something to save someone's life, you're allowed to. Or do anything to save someone's life if they're in danger. So the same thing is with if we get a call, the rabbis say you could break any Shabbos, you could get into your car, you could even turn on your phone if you have to, or whatever it is, to even if maybe it's not a real emergency, but we can't really determine that. We have to go to every call. So in New York City, you're walking down a very populated Jewish area. Sometimes you'll see someone with their radio, with their talis and their whole Shabbos wardrobe, and running to get to their car to respond to an emergency. It's very interesting to see someone. It's the middle of Shabbos. Like we're so focused on not having to do with anything with our car or anything
electronic.
Yeah, and you'll see them responding. So it's a beautiful thing to see. And sometimes in the middle of shul, someone falls and they call, oh, Hatzalah, and a few feet away there's someone, so they can help them right away. So the idea is that certain areas like New York City, the response time is delayed because of traffic or whatever. So Hatzalah basically there's many EMTs all around and every block there's maybe a bunch of EMTs that they
Really, that many?
Depends where, yeah. Some places there can be a lot. So they can respond very quickly. If someone's having a heart attack or a stroke, you need to respond right away. 2-3 minutes, every minute counts. So if someone's in cardiac arrest, there's like a 4 or 6 minute time before they start to lose their
Consciousness?
yeah. They're unconscious, so they can lose their brain function after 4 to 6 minutes.
Really
So
that fast? You have to get there fast.
yeah, so every minute counts. So if they can respond within 2-3 minutes, that's really life-saving.
Again, back to I asked before, but how much training do you have to have? Because that is, it's just not a first aid kit or something like that. You're dealing with life and death, like you're saying. So how much training is there involved?
So for an EMT, which is there's EMT and paramedic. EMT is the lower training, so it's about 4 or 5 months of a few times a week you come to class and you learn about you learn about all these different medical stuff and trauma stuff, and then you go into lab. Then a few times during that course you'll go into lab and you'll study things hands-on to learn how to use certain medical devices and certain things. So after that, you have to take a written test, and you have to take a practical test. Practical test is to make sure you know the steps to take when you're on a call. So 4 or 5 months, and then you have to do some training with another ambulance crew. either during or after, in order to be able to actually use the knowledge you have to, get your.
Like an internship.
Yeah, exactly. So, Del Mar Bethlehem, they have a good training system there. They'll take an EMT student, and you'll ride along with the crew, and they'll teach you hands-on stuff, what you're learning in class and how to use it in the field. So after a few months, you can do it. After you obviously have to pass all the tests. After a few months, they'll consider you a crew chief. That's basically the person in the back of the ambulance, and to be the main person to.
They go out with
do the
one or
medical
two
care.
people though. I mean, if you're in the back, someone's working on the patient, you need a driver too.
Yeah, so there's a driver, and for the most part, there's a driver and a crew chief, someone taking care of the
The
patient.
driver's just a volunteer driver, or he's also EMT?
Usually they're EMT and driver. I'm actually not even certified to be driver yet.
Why would he have to be certified to be?
You just have to, they want you to be comfortable with riding with lights and sirens and all that stuff, so.
Yeah. Well, you go through traffic, I know, that's what I say, sometimes you see any irregular ambulance and wow, they're weaving through traffic.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the easiest thing in the world either,
Yeah, it's
The red lights, slow down, and,
Yeah.
wow, yeah, it's not just a regular driving a car. That's very interesting. How many, being local now, how many EMTs are in the Del Mar Bethlehem area?
They say there's about 70 members.
Really, that's a lot.
So I don't know if they might not all be certified EMTs, but they're part of the
Cool.
organization. Some of them are more.
Now, how do you work? I mean, do they call people up, hey, there's someone, get over there and pick up an ambulance, or you're sitting there? How does it work,
So-
this system?
Yeah, so during the day, there's paid crew. They have a contract with Albany County Sheriff's Office. So basically, it's the Albany County's staff that staff the ambulances. So there's 2 stations, so they'll have two crews at each station. That's during the day because there's more call volume and stuff. And then at night, it goes from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the day shift, and then from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. is the night shift. So they'll have the volunteers come in at 6, or a little bit before 6, but around 6 o'clock to take over the ambulances, and so they'll have one crew at each station at night because it's not as busy.
So you volunteer for like a 12-hour shift? That's you personally, or I guess any person, different to anybody.
Yeah, so the volunteers usually, they do them in 6-hour blocks. So I could do a 12-hour, but usually I just do it in 6, so either 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. or 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. I could do 12, it depends what I'm available for.
And usually you get, so you're like I don't know if there's anything typical, but how many calls would you get on a 6-hour shift, 6 p.m. to midnight? Maybe there's nothing typical about it, but.
So 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., 6 p.m.,
Yeah,
is
midnight.
more busy than obviously from 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. So you could get 3 calls is actually considered a lot, quite a bit. So 1 or 2 is average, and sometimes you can have nothing. It's possible.
Yeah, obviously there's nothing typical about it, you never know.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but now even again locally, I know that, our Chabad Center is on Delaware Avenue, and we were just really not only next door neighbors were attached, the
Yeah.
2 buildings, to the fire department and the ambulance, but now the ambulance crew got a new building on Adams Street.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit further down the road. You can see it from the Chabad. Yeah, the city was able to help them out get that building.
Was needed, talk about economics or something, because they were always there. We've been at the Chabad for a few years and everything was going well. I don't know the inside story, so.
I think it's a lot better now. We're it's a much beautiful building. I don't know, they had a ceremony, like an open house ceremony recently. I don't know if you were there. It's a really state-of-the-art building. They have bunk rooms. It's not just an ambulance station.
Depot, yeah.
They
depot.
also use it the city also uses it for meetings, or they have conference rooms or meeting rooms, and then they'll have quarters for for the EMS, for the EMTs,
To
medics.
lie down,
Yeah,
I mean, at midnight you get
Yeah,
tired.
they have bunk rooms, and they also have like a day room where there's couches, and there's a kitchen, and fridge, and all
wait
that
time.
stuff. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, well, there was a lot of money, but really the truth of the matter is, I mean, it is volunteer, so that was the argument that saving the city so much money because, obviously a regular ambulance crew is gonna cost big money.
Yeah, I mean, it's, locally, there's been a lot of ambulance companies that just went out of business.
Really? I didn't know that.
Because it's so hard to keep up with staffing, and it's expensive, and I guess the reimbursement, I don't know exactly all these things, but the reimbursement, I guess, isn't enough to keep them open, so that's why Albany County was able to, Sheriff's Office, they have a contract with Delmar Bethlehem, but they also have 2 other stations further out where it's much less call volume, so a local, like ambulance company wouldn't be able to stay afloat, but Albany County is able to.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I know, because I do many interviews in Albany also, and again, it's not really your function, but the fire department here also, the fire department's a volunteer fire department and very efficient, and, a little bit, maybe I was right, I asked Albany, I know you see sometimes they're sitting around the fire department, well, why don't you have a volunteer fire department, would save the city so much money? Well, they have their answers, but in any case, obviously, people should be happy about the volunteer because it's saving so much money to the city.
Yeah, I mean, the volunteers serve as for a few things. First of all, obviously it saves them money. So when it saves them money, they could use the money that they have to get very good equipment. They have very expensive equipment that there isn't in other ambulance companies. So that saves them money, and there's just a few other things where it's just also people in the community feel like a sense of giving back to the community when they volunteer, and they can help they could save their neighbor's life. That a lot of people know each other.
Yeah, I think I know my kids once said, because I knew we were next door neighbors actually to a fire department. He actually is a fire chief now. And, when he came down the block, whatever, there was a fire, a little thing, but, so I'm saying hello to all the guys, and my daughter was, just like usually in New York City, who knows anybody? You don't know the policeman, you don't know the anybody in the fire department, they're just, different strangers. And here, how you doing? You want to come on over and we'll give you a cup of liquid, and, it was like a little weird for them to think that, but it's beautiful. Actually, carrying this thought further, I always say even in our Chabad we have the food pantry, and again, it's people who are volunteering to get the food from the very nicely from the shopping centers, which these marketplaces give over their extra food, and they pack them and they deliver them. And I always think that America really lost something when they lost a volunteer. Now it's just like, oh, you need money? Oh, the social services department will give you, a welfare check or whatever they give, food stamps. Again, you don't know the government person, you go to some supermarket, and here it's volunteer. People would like to volunteer, and it's nice to volunteer. Here's a neighbor, here, we know you're on hard times, here's some food. So I think we lost a lot of that in the United States, just saying, well, go to the government, they'll take care of everything. And maybe you could say it's a little more efficient, but on the other hand, there is something about a volunteer community, which you see it in the suburbs, but in the city you really don't see it so much.
Yeah, and it comes down to the management. The management in Delmar Bethlehem, they really care about the city, and they care about their members, and they'll go out of their way to make sure everyone's happy and comfortable. So it goes a long way to it trickles down to the members to feel like a sense of
community working together. Well, let's say again back to the idea of the Shabbos. On Saturday, of course, we said before, and you explained it very nicely about how if there is a medical emergency or any emergency, then it overruns Shabbos. Life is more important than any mitzvah, except for 3 things. But idol worshiping, killing someone, which we don't deal with today, thank God.
Yeah.
And and forbidden sexual relationships. Those are the three. But Shabbos and kosher, again, thank God we don't deal with kosher. For example, that if someone would, what did happen in concentration camp, and they finally have some horse's meat. I mean, if you're eating sawdust the whole day, and saying, well, you're dying. You see these people; they're like scarecrows when they came out. They're dying of malnutrition, so just eat. Just
exactly.
Forget about the kosher. Just eat. You need your nourishment. Thank God we don't deal with that. But Shabbos is a very relevant idea. You can't say don't get sick. One day a week, 1 out of 7 days. 15% of the time, just don't get sick and don't have. That's ridiculous, and obviously it doesn't happen. But do you have to worry about Shabbos, or it's just like I say, set in a certain way, like that. You have your hours, so they won't bother you on a Saturday.
Yeah. So over here, I choose my hours. It's Sunday through Thursday. I mean, if I was in Atala, then I would kind of be available.
Yeah, you were saying that before. I remember the first time was many years ago. Tell everybody I'm 29, but in any case, it's been many years ago, and I was staying by a Lubavitcher person's house in Crown Heights, and all of a sudden, squawk, 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 is whatever, the walkie-talkie goes off, and it's Saturday, it's Shabbos, and what's he dealing with? He says, well, I am a Hatzalah guy. I didn't, and like the first time I saw that, I was like, what's happening here? But again, that you're right, and people so used to it, people running around, or they're in the synagogue with their walkie-talkies on them.
They can be in the middle of a Shabbos meal with their family, enjoying their time, and then all of a sudden something comes up, and I have to leave.
Yeah, it is. It's what you call in Hebrew, Mr. It's never self-sacrifice, because you're right. A person would want to be with his family, surely, on Saturday. He's sitting at a nice meal, and someone's hurt. Okay, now that's going to override. Forget the meal. Forget my family. I'm going out and helping somebody. So it's not just volunteering, putting in a few hours, but that really kind of idea, middle of the night, you have to wake up or whatever. That's very difficult. And all right, even for doctors who are paid very nicely, like an OB-GYN, a baby is getting born, they have to come out. On the other hand, these are volunteers, and still they go out of their way, totally out of their way, to help another person.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to see, the volunteers and just doing they put their heart and soul into everything they do to help people out.
I do with the Hatzalah. See, it's not here because obviously Bethlehem, they don't care who you are, race, religion, whatever. But in the Hatzalah, going back to New York City, is a Jewish organization. But I mean, I'm not there. Obviously, I'm here in Delmar. But you read stories about, well, if they see a car accident and there's a Jew and a non-Jew, for example, so, we'll only care about the Jew. We don't care about you because we're a Jewish organization. But that's not true at all. And they will, they say outstanding ideas where they're complimented, or they're going down to an ambulance, they say going home from something, and they see something, and they're going to, again, a car accident, something you see, and saying, hey, this is not our business, we don't do those things, but they will help anybody.
Yeah, even if they get either if they see something, or even the Hatzalah will get a call from, they don't know who it is, Jewish, not Jewish, they can't say, are you Jewish? Okay, I'm gonna come. No, they're gonna respond to anyone, anywhere, anytime. So it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not. It's just, I guess, Jewish people know about Hatzalah, but they'll respond to anyone.
Yeah, no, that's very important for a lot of people to understand that. Again, because volunteer, they're ready to help not just the Jewish community, but to anybody that really needs help. So I think that's an important point that it should be made for every person also. That's an important idea. It's interesting, the Hatzalah, I always have stories about everything, but, I have friends, people who are really professional medical people, but I what's your future also? I wanted to ask you, I mean, you could be a volunteer till 120 over here, but still, you maybe complement as volunteering with some profession. You're still a young guy, you see that.
Yeah, I'm looking into going into the nursing field. I don't know exactly what, but RN, and maybe eventually nurse practitioner, so something in that field. So I mean, getting this experience is, besides for helping people, it also helps me, advance in my career.
Will they give you credits for that and anything?
No, it's just, it's good,
You're hands-on field,
Yeah.
you know what you want.
Yeah.
So many young people, and I know people like that, they do nurse and then, or they go into some profession, and after they're there for a year or two, well, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Well, you got trained, and,
Yeah.
I mean, well, if you don't like it, you don't have to stay there your whole life. But still, I mean, it's always good to get a hands-on, I tell that for young people, just see what it really is, life for life, or, you're a policeman, oh yeah, I wanna be that kind of guy on TV,
Yeah.
and shooting around, no, it isn't that way, you're just patrolling around and, I would assume it's fairly boring half the time, just
Yeah.
going patrolling, it sounds like on TV.
Yeah.
There's emergency call, and after 1 minute, there's a new emergency call on TV,
Yeah.
the way these sitcoms. But, so it's important, like you say, what it is, and you like helping people. It's a helping profession, really.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying. I know that, people in there, they say, well, listen, you save people's lives. And,
Yeah.
I mean, certain doctors are not, or some pediatrician give a flu shot
Yeah.
to somebody, I mean, maybe it is saving their life, but.
For the
I mean,
most
there is
part,
a-
most things are just basic, every day-to-day thing. Not every day are you gonna save someone's life, So a lot of people join, become EMTs to say like, oh, I'm gonna ride the ambulance and
Yeah.
lights and sirens, oh, it's all exciting, and then they realize, okay, I'm just helping an old person, he fell, she fell, helping them get up on their bed or taking them to the hospital. It's not so fancy and,
Romantic.
yeah.
As the TV shows would probably
Yeah.
want to make it over
Yeah.
here. So that is important over here. We have only a minute or two left. It's been enjoying talking to, because I think besides everything, I think it's important, what you're doing for sure, and any person really would be that, but here you're Jewish and you're Hasidic and you're helping the general community, because, I would like to see a bigger Jewish population in Delmar, to say the least, but on the other hand, obviously, the great majority of people are non-Jewish, and here you're a Jewish Hasidic person, think, hey, I'm gonna help out, for the most part, a non-Jewish community, and like you say, whatever, old people, or whatever, any kind of medical emergency. So I think that's important, and that's why I wanted to bring you on the Jewish view, because that is, you say even at Seoul in New York, where there is a big enough Jewish community, to say the least, but on the other hand, they're willing to help out non-Jews. So again, that, people think maybe like Jewish people or even Orthodox Jews keep to themselves and only care about themselves. But I think that's an important point that we're making, that, you care about every person. It's not just your own community.
Yeah, the truth is that we do go on a lot of calls, and the person will have a Jewish name, and he or she will see my yarmulke and say, oh, you're Jewish, I'm also Jewish, so we'll have a little nice conversation, or even if, I do come on to a lot of calls with Jews, and even non-Jews, they'll say, oh, are you Jew? Like they know Jews
Yeah.
from wherever, and they'll be interested and maybe ask me some questions, and so I guess it's nice for someone to see a Jewish person and helping out in the community.
Well, again, like I say, I've been around for a long time, but I remember, and this is a number of years ago, one person went to the hospital, a Jewish person said, oh, and it's not even this city, I saw a doctor and he had a yarmulke on, but now it's not so unusual, maybe for Delmar it is,
Yeah.
for the capital district, but in New York City it surely isn't. But it's important,
Yeah.
that for people also, because say, well, if you're Orthodox, you have to be, my son's got to be a rabbi. No, it doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
rabbi.
Yeah.
You could be a medical person, a business person, a lawyers, doctors, and doesn't stop you from being Orthodox from any profession that you really want. So I think that's an important point also
Sure.
for the community, where you're not like, again,
Yeah.
boxed in
Yeah.
to only your community and caring about yourself. Well, we're out of time. It was really enjoyable, Mendel, having good luck to what you're doing, and congratulations really on helping people, but then also giving a blessing for the future, that it come back when we have a bigger and better
Yeah.
things in the future. Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.